Evolution of a Nobody, Chapters 23, 24, and 25. The Weight of Trust. Chapter 23. Moments later, the lights began to flicker on and return to life, lighting up the apartment. Raziel put her hands behind her head and whistled as if she had absolutely not done anything wrong. "You know what's funny, Albert?" she asked as she proceeded to run her hands through her silky black hair and gave her head a vigorous shake. "What?" he asked as he headed past them toward his bathroom, thinking to grab a towel. "You humans developed a lot of the same beliefs about demons, succubi in particular, as our homeland. Some of those beliefs are even kind of true. We have a natural affinity for certain types of dark magic. Succubi can infiltrate and manipulate dreams. It's one of the first things we learn how to do. I just paid Trevor's dreams a visit." "Okay, I don't think I want any details," Albert said while they followed after. He rubbed his head vigorously with a brown towel and tossed it to Raziel. "I wasn't as subtle. Lisa was awake." Liala explained what happened, and Albert's face was carefully neutral, showing no emotion, while he reached out and took another towel to throw to her. Liala caught it and began to dry herself off. She is genuinely sorry for what she said and what she did. "I don't care," Albert shook his head. "I literally really do not care how sorry she is." Liala approached. "I think she'll make it right. Confess so that you don't get more bad treatment over it." She put a hand on Albert's arm. He looked down at it. Then up at the angel, inches away from him. "If she does that, that's more than I expect, but it just prevents future attacks that haven't happened yet. I'm still on the bottom at school, and that's how it will stay as long as I'm in this place, and I can't leave." Liala looked away from the hardness in his lustrous brown eyes. "I'll heal you every time. I promise. Every time you come through that door. I don't have all the magic I used to. How could I? But we'll help. It's the least we can do." Liala's eyes became steady. "I hope that's enough." Albert softened. One hand came up and touched the hand that still held his wet arm. "You know, if I hadn't met you two, I might have forgiven Lisa. I might have been willing to let it go just to keep her around. Humans are social creatures. We need community. We need each other. We're unhealthy in the absence of others in the long term. I was so desperate just a few days ago that if she'd done that, I'd have said, 'I forgive you,' just to pretend I had a friend." "Oh, come on, no you wouldn't," Raziel said, straightening up as she dried off her hair. "Yes, I probably would have." His lip curled up a little at the corner. "I hate to overuse the word pathetic, so I won't, but there aren't many other words. Let's just say I think of you two as friends. It hasn't been long, but maybe because we've traded trust. I don't know." Albert shrugged. "If I've got friends here, I'm not worried about being out there." Raziel rolled her eyes. "My sister is right, but you know, I still say you should just learn to fight. There's no reason you shouldn't defend yourself. Why should you get beaten up just because you were unlucky about your dad and—" "From who?" Albert asked and peeled off his soaking wet shirt. "Look, I know a lot about history, military stuff, but I don't know anything about fighting, and there's nobody who would teach the bad seed how to fight. Anybody who could just wants me to bleed anyway." His voice was thick with sarcasm, and Raziel was not without a quick retort. "Us? Our world has lots of war, and my sister and I are both well-trained. We had to be in order to subdue any hero we summoned, you know, just in case," she explained, and Albert shook his head. "Thank you, but no thank you. I've got no reason to fight, and all my mom asked was that Albert said. His face was warm again, a light flush on his cheeks. "I'll stick with my books and video games." "If you say so," Raziel replied. "Now about our wet clothes." "Oh, right," Liala replied and held up a hand. Seconds later, the water was drawn out of the fabric of each of them and combined into a ball of undulating and pulsing water easily the size of all three of their heads combined. She guided it to the bathroom, and with a light flick of her wrist, it arced into the tub with a powerful, echoing splatter, and then began to disappear down the drain. I can't get over how useful magic is. Albert grinned stupidly, giddy all over and his hair standing on end every time he saw it. Liala had a little smirk at his praise. "Thanks," she said, and smoothed out her clothing. Now, Raziel eyed the console. Do you mind? Go ahead, Albert said, and went to flop down on his bed. The worries of his day were gone. School would come, if not for a few days, as he was already thinking of the excuse he would use to call in sick. Mom won't notice. She doesn't notice anything anymore, he thought, and stretched out with a groan. Keep the volume down, Raziel, but the screen won't bother me, Albert said. He didn't hear what she said because before he knew it, he was out like the lights were earlier. No sooner than he was out cold than Raziel was on her feet. The game paused. Raziel, what are you doing? Liala asked while laying out their sleeping bags and folding her wings around her body. The demoness was standing over the sleeping Albert and staring down into his resting face. I can't do healing magic, my race can't do that, but there is something I can do. I can make his dreams into utter bliss. Raziel, Liala hissed, you didn't ask him. I'll ask him in his dreams, she said without looking at her sister, though even without looking, the demon felt the reproachful look of the angel. You know that isn't the same thing, Liala critiqued her. We know he bled out there to get us things to wear, and standing out in that storm, he doesn't have fur or a thick coat or heat magic. It's nice to be put first for once. Is it so strange for me to want to show my gratitude? Raziel replied with the rhetorical question. If you insist, then why not just stimulate the pleasure centers of his mind? Going into his dreams now is probably not the best idea, Liala pointed out, and Raziel relented. Fine, it's no worse than putting an extra blanket on him, so I'll do that instead. But the other way would have been fun for me, too, Raziel pointed out with a pout. Yeah, just do it, finish your game, and come lie down, we'll set and hope to the gods he's as good as we believe. Raziel put a hand on the sleeping young man. I shared with him. I've been wrong about a lot of things, but not this. Not this. Dream. Dream wonderful dreams that fill you with bliss all night long, she said, and uttered a string of complex syllables, and she watched the smile start to form on his face. Suddenly no longer in the mood for games, she saved, turned it off, and slid into the sleeping bag at the foot of his bed beside her sister. Before we do this, Raziel asked, did you ever regret our binding? No. No, I didn't. And not just because it made us the most powerful summoners in the world. I didn't regret it because nobody could have asked for a better sister or a better friend. Liala asked and kissed her sister's forehead. She pinched the demon's cheek. All right, then let's do it. Raziel took a deep breath. Shwanesi, Liala whispered. XTKZCPL, Raziel whispered at the exact same moment. Square one! They uttered the phrase in the language of the world in which they now lay, and clung together hand in hand. Before each of their eyes their skills appeared and began to disappear. Yellow squares in summoning, in strength enhancement, in speed enhancements, in flight, their body magic spells, everything. It took an hour for it all to happen, but it did. Can you move? Raziel asked in a tiny whisper. No. So this is how weak I was as an infant. I can't say I like it, Liala whispered back and managed to flop her head to the side to face her sister. It won't be long at least, so just be patient and keep trying to move. When Albert wakes up, everything will be fine, Liala added. I know, Raziel said for the first time in her life, confident that her sister was right. Chapter 24. Albert awoke in the morning with the sense of the utmost contentment. His entire body felt as if he slept on a cloud. Whatever the dream had been, though he couldn't recall it, he knew it was marvelous. He slid his legs over the side, taking a moment to look first, lest his roommates had moved somehow or for some reason while he was asleep. Then, seeing that they weren't there, he set his feet down, scrunched his feet over the off-white carpet, and stretched his arms above his head while arching his back with a groan. That was the best night's sleep I've had in a very long time, Albert said and walked over to check. He found a ruby-eyed demoness looking up at the ceiling and an angel lightly snoring beside her. Well, we did it. We went back to square one. I assume my sister told you? Raziel said in a quiet, scratchy voice. Albert stared straight down at her. Yeah, how did... Raziel's lips moved at a glacial pace. Because of course she would tell you. I love my sister dearly, but she is hopelessly predictable. Predictable and far too trusting. She said while lying helpless on her back beside that same sister, Albert pointed out. Raziel wheezed out a laugh. I'm one to talk, aren't I? I'm lying here the same as she. Can I ask, if you're so naturally suspicious, why not do it separately? One of you go back to square one, let the other protect her, and then the other one does it? Albert asked, his curiosity piqued. Because we bonded in order to perform the summoning for Kami. Our squares were linked or stacked, maybe like links in the chain. You can't shorten it without breaking it. Her head flopped to the side, and she looked up with the one she had available. She couldn't go back to one unless I did, and I couldn't unless she did. We either went together or not at all, and from what I've read about your world and what we've seen with you, we won't survive unless we do it at all. So now that you've done it, what happens? Albert asked. Raziel was very, very quiet. Only the snoring of her sister broke the silence. If it was possible, the demoness went even more limp. That's up to you. We'll have a few days where we're completely helpless. Our strength resets to barely enough to speak. We can't feed ourselves, we can't drink, we can barely turn our heads. In my world... Yes? Albert asked and sat cross-legged close by her so it would be easier for her to see his face. In my world, going back to square one is the deepest possible form of trust. Usually it's only bonded pairs or family or the closest of battle comrades that will be trusted to be present because any horrible thing can be done. There are all kinds of stories, even so, of mates who have slain their own, comrades, or even family members who took advantage of that vulnerability. Even once someone can move, they lack most of the skills necessary to protect themselves. So someone bigger and stronger, which is most people, can get away with a lot. Raziel let that hang while Albert soaked it in. That means the person taking care of them while they're helpless also acts as a bodyguard until the resetted person can grow strong again in new ways, Raziel explained and took a deep breath. Why me, then? We barely even know each other, really, Albert asked. Because we don't have a choice. You're the only human we know. I doubt we can find someone else. Even if they exist, we've got no way to know who they are. You're it. Plus, you were my first sharing, and you bled for us. You knew it was dangerous out there. You knew you'd get beaten down, but to help us, you went. I guess what I'm saying is, I have every reason to trust you now. Raziel tried to move her arm, but the mere weight of her sister's hand over hers prevented more than a very slight shake. Take my hand, would you, Albert Baptiste Lamarck? Raziel asked. A chill washed over him as the gravity of the situation for them hit home. He took her hand and folded it in his. Her hand was very, very warm, and her fingers moved only a little, the sharp talons barely more than a light scratch. This wasn't easy for me or for her. All I can do is hope we made the right choice. I'd be lying if I were to say it isn't scary. I've seen your internet. There's a whole genre of hentai based on this exact situation. Raziel was not smiling when she said it, nor did she laugh, and neither did Albert. You did, Albert said and patted her hand. You did. I promise. No harm will come to you, but I will ask that you be careful about what internet websites you go to. Viruses are a problem. Raziel gave a half snort. If I was at all unsure, I'd have said something along the lines of, just take me and leave my sister alone. But if I had to say that sort of thing, we wouldn't have done this in the first place. I suppose not, Albert added and patted her hand again. How do I take care of you? I've never taken care of a demon or an angel before. At square one, we need life energy from living things. We can take food, but it's faster and safer with the life energy of others. Obviously, it has to be freely given. We can't exactly take it by force. She managed a weak little smile at that. Safer how? Albert asked, raising an eyebrow. Our bodies are very weak, so food contamination could hurt us more than it otherwise would, she explained, and Albert gave a sharp nod of understanding. Right, but giving you life energy. How do I do that, and is that dangerous? Albert asked. Just relax, stay how you are, and I'll do the rest. And it can be lethal, but only if I take too much at once. You'll replenish it on your own over time. Raziel explained, and Albert cleared his throat, shifted his posture a bit, and bowed his head with a deep breath. Do it, he ordered. That felt great. Just do that for me a few times a day for the next 2 or 3 days, and we should be on our feet again soon. We should even have a few basic squares open to us. I really want to ask about those squares, but one other thing comes to mind, and given what just happened, it's going to sound bad, Allbear said and furrowed his brow. Yes? Raziel could barely adjust her facial muscles, but he detected a distinct tension in her voice. How do we handle, the bathroom situation? That would be uncomfortable even if I were a woman, I guess. But I'm definitely not. Albert gave his head a vigorous shake of denial. Raziel's inability to blush did nothing whatsoever to disguise her immediate discomfort, nor take any of it out of her voice when she replied simply, "Oh." Chapter 25. Liala woke up eventually as unable to move as her sister. Albert extended his hand and allowed her to draw life from him as Raziel had. It had a distinctly different feel to it when she did. Raziel was a tingling sort of sensation, whereas Liala it was more of a long caress. When it came to pass that it was over, Albert said, "I don't feel right having you just lie on the floor for the next few days. I can take the floor and you can take the bed. I feel like a perverted creeper if I just leave you down there. Plus, it seems like the bed would be more comfortable." I guess, Raziel agreed. Yeah, Liala agreed likewise, but their eyes were clouded with a hint of doubt. "If you don't want to, it's fine. I'm just thinking of you here," Albert insisted, rubbing the back of his head. "I get why you might doubt that, but the offer stands." Raziel finally rolled her eyes. "All right, me first." Albert nodded, crouched down, opened the sleeping bag all the way, and tossed the top half over. He then put an arm under her leg beneath the knee and another under her back. He hefted her up and couldn't help but notice her bat wings are so smooth, her body so warm. Her hair soft as it looked, smooth as silk. He closed his eyes and set the demon gently down on his mattress. "Liala?" he asked. Yes," Liala answered, avoiding his eyes. "Here or there?" he asked, and pointed from where she was to beside Raziel in his bed. "I want to be with my sister," Liala said instantly. "Okay, just be still. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise," Albert said as he undid her sleeping bag and flung it open in the same way. He took her in his arms as he had Raziel a moment ago. Her wings so soft, her hair like Raziel's, her skin soft, warm, the smell of lilacs. He tried to think of something else, and in his own discomfort he wouldn't look at her as he carried her to where Raziel lay waiting and set Liala beside her. "I guess you'll be bored just lying there for days, so, this is new to me." Albert avoided looking at the pair, going so far as to put his back to them. I think you need some entertainment, yeah." The battery slid out and rolled away from him as soon as it landed. "Just a moment, okay, I'll take care of everything." He dropped down to all fours and grabbed the dark controller, the battery part, and looked around for the pair of AA batteries. His fingers fumbled around to get the batteries in the right position, switching the positive and the negative ends in the wrong direction, twice. "There!" Albert exclaimed, and the little donk noise came off the television when he selected an anime streaming service. "Now what kind of series do you like?" he asked without looking over his shoulder. "Action? Drama? Romance? Comedy?" "Action," Raziel said. "Romance," Liala asserted. "Okay, that's a problem. Take turns?" he asked while staring at the screen. Albert, it's all right. We're not going to melt if you just look in our direction. Just pick something and sit with us," Raziel said. Yeah, sure." Albert thumbed his finger over the stick and jumped around aimlessly until he selected a random series about a young man living with various female monsters. Something about it just felt right, given his situation. When it started, he stood up and set the controller by the computer on the desk. Only then did he glance at the bed and realize that Raziel couldn't properly see the screen. "Idiot!" He cursed himself. They watched him more than the show, though as it was only on its intro music, that was no surprise. If you just looked or thought, you'd realize she couldn't have enjoyed it. "Here, let me help you." Albert said, a little flush coming to his cheeks. He went into his closet, grabbed an old stuffed animal that he'd never thrown away, and then returning to the bed, he said, "I'm going to have to move you a bit for this. Is that okay?" Raziel had trouble moving her head, but she answered with a soft, "It's fine, just be careful." Albert nodded and leaned past Liala. He put a hand under Raziel's upper back, raising her up, and then shoved the old stuffed bear under her pillow to give it some extra height to let her see the screen. He lowered her back down and stepped aside. "Can you see better now?" he asked. "Yes, much better, but I'm very thirsty. Could I have some water?" Raziel asked. "Me too, please," Liala asked with the faintest potential hint of a smile of encouragement. Yeah, sure, of course, anything you want," Albert said and left the room. Even from his bedroom, even over the noise of the television, they could hear him fumbling around, the clatter of glasses, plates, and other things as he tried to get them what they wanted. "Sweet, but not as innocent as he seems," Raziel said in a quiet little voice, "which may not be so bad. It would be stranger if he didn't notice us that way. At least this makes him more understandable." "Does it, though?" Liala retorted, then relaxed. "I guess it's too late now. This will be an uncomfortable few days." Albert returned a moment later holding 2 tall plastic cups with lids on them. "I'm sorry, this is the best I could do. I added some ice to make it better. Some might spill when you try to drink unless I help you sit up." "Fine." They said it once, and Albert inched closer. Setting 1 cup down, he got an arm under Liala, lifted her halfway up, and brought the cup to her lips. "This would have been easier with straws, but it can't be helped," he said and tilted the cup for her. Liala felt the cool water flow past her lips. She swallowed greedily, acutely aware of his eyes on her face, his breathing and hers briefly aligned until he poured too quickly and she began coughing. Her body spasmed for several seconds while he apologized. "Damn!" "Sorry," he said, dropping the cup and spilling some of the water on her clothing. He pounded her back while she coughed it up. "It's fine, it was an accident," Liala replied, and relaxed as he fumbled to pick up the cup from her lap and set it aside. "I'll be careful," he promised, glancing at the demoness on the other side. "Uh-huh, and how are you going to reach from there without lying on top of my sister, pervert?" she asked, and he paused to think that over. She had a point. Getting the pillow adjusted against the headboard had been awkward enough. The bed was against the wall, so move the bed. It was an obvious solution. "A little rearranging, and this way you can see the TV better, too," he said with a bright smile, pleased with himself that he had an answer. "Just stay still, forget I said that," he said, flushed in the face again. He grabbed the far end of the bed and began to pull. Kicking the sleeping bags out of the way, he dragged the bed toward the door, then reached down, picked up the foot end, and began to rotate it. The weight of the heavy old frame, with 2 bodies on it, plus a mattress, was considerable. He grunted repeatedly as he swung it around, and then setting it down, he pushed it against the wall so that it faced the television on the far side of the room. He wiped his forehead with the back of one arm. "Whoo!" he said with a boyish grin. "Done. Now I can reach you both with ease. To help you, I mean." He picked up the cup, went to Raziel's side, sat himself beside her, and helped her up to drink. There was no choking that time.